Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. There are a ton of sessions to come to at Ignite, so I really appreciate you showing up here. Hopefully, you'll get value out of this, and that's part of my goal, is to show you what the Office Telemetry dashboard can do and how it can add value to you and your organizations. The great news is that it's free. If you buy one license of Office 2013 Professional Plus or Office 365 Pro Plus, or Office 2016 Professional Plus or 365 Pro. So it comes as part of the software, right? So there's nothing extra to purchase. You buy one copy, and then you can download the telemetry agent and deploy it to all of your older clients, like 2007, 2010, right? So it's a free solution. So this is great. My goal is to say, hey, you know what? Or for you to say, you know what? This looks good. I want to evaluate it in my environment. So we're going to talk about what it is, and more importantly, what it's used for. What are the challenges that we're trying to overcome by creating Office Telemetry. And then, so it's kind of a foundational, what is telemetry, but we'll get a little deep to talk about some of the details. And I believe this won't take more than an hour, so I would love to hear questions about if you want to know more. So basically, the reason we created telemetry is to help reframe how customers and IT organizations approach Office deployment projects. One of the big challenges we saw is that, this is going back to the Office 2010 days, is for large organizations, and my definition of large is like 15, 20,000 users and up, we saw that it was taking more than a year to deploy the first seat of Office. So when you decided or purchased, hey, you know what, I want to go to Office, it would take a year until you made that decision until you deployed your first seat. And the biggest challenge was, okay, I want to go to the next version of Office. Where do I start? What do I do first? And that was a big, oh, geez, I don't know. And one of the challenges is the IT group generally doesn't have a great handle on how Office is used by the business areas. They deploy the software, the business areas create the stuff, and they use and consume it. It's all stuff, it's not crap. So the goal of telemetry is to help speed up that process, make it more efficient, less costly, because now in a services world, right, where Office 365 and 365 Pro Plus is upgrading and changing and enhancing all the time, not getting value out of your investment for over a year is bad. It's horrible. It just doesn't fit. And so you're more apt to not deploy, and you're more apt to not be happy with the software you're using. And that's bad for Microsoft. Again, my hidden agenda is we find that people who are on the latest versions of software are more apt to buy our next versions of software, right? So my hidden agenda is to get you to get the newer stuff, because then you're going to be happy with it, and you want to continue to buy our stuff. So there's my hidden agenda that I just disclosed. Anyway, so again, the goal of telemetry is to shrink this cycle. Make it so that it's a lot quicker to get ready to deploy and start deploying immediately. Because the biggest challenge with migrating to new versions of Office, in a nutshell, is making sure, does my stuff work? Right? I've created tons of stuff in previous versions of Office. Will my charts and spreadsheets and Word documents render correctly? Will all my macros and add-ins, will they still work? Do I have all these third-party apps? Will they still function? Solutions that my business needs to run their business, are they still going to work? And that's the big challenge. Another big challenge is that there's just so much stuff out there. And a lot of companies would start with, when they figure out, hey, I want to go to the next version of Office, what do? I know. I'll get a better handle on the scope of my problem by inventorying all the Office things out there. And so usually when I talk to companies, if you want to try and estimate how many Office documents and solutions you have, start with about 500 documents per person. Depending on your industry, that's only going to go up. I think a few years ago when I was at Tech Ed, I actually used that same line, and I went to my, no, this must have been 3 years ago, I went to my computer, looked at my Documents folder, my OneDrive at the time, my local computer, and I found I had 1,200 documents, Office documents. And I'd been with the company at that point 6 years, I think. Something like that. And one person employed for 6 years, 1,200 documents, right? And scale that up by, 10,000. And now that's what? Hold on. It's a lot. 12 million, I think. It's impractical to test everything. For instance, I found 21 copies of my resume. Now, again, I don't need to inventory and test all 21 copies. And that's usually the point of inventory, is trying to figure out, hey, what do I care about? What do I need to test? I can tell you I don't need 21 copies. I need 1, maybe 2, depending if I'm trying to go into a new role. So it's impractical to find everything and test everything. It's not impossible. It's just impractical. It costs a lot. But the biggest challenge is the mindset of, oh, it's such a bear of an effort. Whoops, I don't even have it on the screen. Wouldn't it be easier if I just don't do anything? If I just stick with this version of, I'll upgrade later. I'll push off the pain. Was anyone at the customer showcase on Tuesday where we had 3 companies come in and talk about their Pro Plus experience? All right, so there were 3 companies, Henkel, Allstate, TE Connectivity. All, I think, were about 20,000 end users and up. And 2 of them were migrating from Office 2003. And I think the other one was I think it was 2007. But basically, upgrading Office can be a pain in the butt. Can be a challenge. Sorry, we'll edit that later. That's the mindset we want to get out of. We want to make it a lot easier to upgrade. Telemetry is one of the investments we made to get people out of that mindset, because Office 2003 was designed about 15 years ago. Office 2007 designed over 10 years ago. So it's not built for our modern productivity needs. I want to work anywhere I want. I want to collaborate with others. I want to be productive. It's just not there. So we want to make sure you're getting value out of it. So that's why we created Office Telemetry. But the biggest goal of telemetry is to reframe the approach you take to getting ready, or getting ready to get ready, your pre-deployment efforts. The biggest thing it does is, instead of inventorying everything you have, and we have tools, old tools, and there's another company that actually builds better tools to help you inventory all your stuff. Well, we said, you know what, that's a bad idea, because what you're doing is you're trying to find that big circle of here's what I have. What you want to get to is really, well, a much smaller circle of here's what I need. And telemetry helps you get that by finding out, well, what documents are currently being used. In a nutshell, it just takes your MRU list, your most recently used list, bubbles it up centrally, so now you can see which documents are used the most. And it's a really great way to help build your test plan if you want to validate things before you migrate to a new version of Office. It doesn't collect any data, just metadata. Names, file paths, titles, names, titles, and the computer it's on. File names, file paths. Yeah. So just the metadata about it. So we don't collect any data, but we just say, oh, here's what's used the most. So it's a great way. Usage of documents is I'll say, a pretty good proxy for helping determine what's important to the business and what do I need to keep using going forward, because now you can identify, you can discover what's being used, rather than inventorying everything and trying to whittle out all the stuff so that you only get that small circle of what you really need. So that's one thing that telemetry is great for, is helping you migrate to newer versions of Office, and that's going from 2010 or older to 2013 or even 2016. So it's great for helping build your test plan by identifying what you're using. Other things it can do is you can help determine what add-ins and solutions are in my environment and who's using, or who has those the most. It also will tell you add-in performance. When I say performance, I mean load performance. When it loads, how often did it, or how long did it take to load? It's not a debugging tool, but it will help somewhat answer the question, why is Outlook running so slow? Perhaps there's a faulty add-in. It also helps if you have Office 2013 apps or higher. You can get deeper information, richer information about issues and events that are occurring in your environment. Issues such as a document failed to load. Maybe it's got a virus, a 0-byte file. An application crashed. My add-in crashed when I tried to load it. I'm using a document that contains an unregistered ActiveX control. I'm using out of date or no longer supported ActiveX controls. I'm using a macro that has deprecated or changed object model items. So it'll surface a lot of those data points to help you build a better idea of, hey, what's the potential impact in my environment? And it can also help track the deployments. It'll show you, hey, what versions of Office do I have? You can use, and I'll show this at the end, some custom reporting to help figure out, well, what different builds, say, of Office 365 Pro Plus do I have in my environment? So then I can take that a step further and figure out, hey, what issues are in my environment based on what version of Office I have. So it's kind of cool. Let's see. So let me do the. Let me show you the dashboard, and I'm going to go over here. All right. So again, if you want to get in the dashboard, it is included with Office, and there's a shortcut. Telemetry dashboard for Office 2013. There's also a telemetry log, which just shows a local computer information. And what it does, it allows you, and basically, so this is installed with every copy of Office 2013 Professional Plus, Office 365 Pro Plus. However, you can't get to the data unless you have been specifically provisioned access. So it's not like, oh, everyone has this, everyone can see the data. I need to get access to this database. In my case, because it's a demo, I have a SQL Server Express database installed on this machine. And the first thing you see is our overview page, which shows you a basic landscape of how Office is performing in the environment. Right? What documents have been reported to not have any issues, ones that have had issues, which are listed as unstable. Same thing with solutions, which is add-ins, apps for Office. And then the deployment trend. What versions of Office are in my environment, and how's the deployment been going? So when I'm getting ready to deploy Office, my opinion, a new version of Office, my opinion is the documents view, documents worksheet, is the most important. Because this will tell me, hey, by default, here's the documents that are used the most. With this, I can find out, I can surface immediately, well, what is important to my business, because this is what they actually use. So it's kind of cool, and it's nice and color-coded. So it'll help show me Office users. If they're Office 2013 and higher, we can provide richer information. So I can expand this and figure out the exact Office version. What's cool is I can also apply labels or tags so I can identify where the data is coming from. And these are implemented via a registry key, group policy mainly. So you can say, because if I'm in a certain business area, like I'm in the sales department or the finance department, I don't necessarily care about all the documents that everyone else is using. If the IT group is coming to me saying, hey, listen, let's test your documents, we can surface which ones. I want to be able to surface the ones that I only care about. So let's say I filter this to the finance group. And then I hit, refresh. And now basically it'll only show me, it'll filter out the data that only applies to the finance group. So it makes it a little more personal. So implementing tags or labels, you can basically filter out and get rid of a lot of the noise that other business units don't care about. Another thing I like to do is if my goal is to help determine, hey, what do I need to test? What do I need to validate that works before I go to Office 2013? I want to get rid of all the noise. So, for instance, I'm in the finance group. I really only care about testing Excel documents. So I can filter this based on Excel. I'm not sure how well that shows up. But all these drop-downs are part of the solution. I'm just going to uncheck everything but Excel. I'm going to do it again, apparently. I'm going to hit OK, maybe. Maybe. I'm having a mouse problem. Well, let's just pretend I just hit Excel. And what it would do is just filter out all the Excel documents. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, the other thing that's important to filter out the noise is we've got a built-in column. So it shows you what documents are that are included when you install Office. The normal ... little stuff like that. So if my goal is to figure out what do I need to test, I just want to get rid of the number 1. And I can't explain that either. So let's just pretend that worked too. I don't know why my mouse is having such... Anyway, whatever. And then I can now surface, well, here are the documents that are really important to me because they're used the most. They're not shipped with Office because I don't think you should spend testing cycles testing things that are documents that are included with the Office product. Because we've got a great financial incentive to make sure that stuff that we provide actually works in Office. So for your point of view, if you want to validate things, get rid of the built-in column. You can just filter it out. So the Solutions tab kind of shows the same stuff, except it shows like mainly add-ins. So again, you can see, well, who's got what version of Office they're using if you want. If you have Office 2013 or higher, it'll show you richer telemetry information, stuff like the load time. So now I can figure out, well, which add-ins are being used, are taking a long time to load, and what's the potential impact. For instance, I've got one that is being used by 5 people, and it takes 28 seconds to load. Ooh, that's bad. But it only affects 5 people. So maybe I can talk to them individually. Hey, it looks like, in this case, it's using with Word. Looks like Word is performing slowly, right? So the IT group can now surface that information. Here's one that takes nearly 10 seconds to load, but it's used by a lot of people. So that may be more impactful to the business. So this helps you determine impact and scope by figuring out, hey, what solutions are used the most. Other things here on the telemetry processor, you can figure out, well, how's the health of your telemetry infrastructure? We'll talk about that. What servers the clients, your telemetry agents are connecting to, and how many seats of Office do you have, depending on group by version and bitness. A neat thing, though, with the documents is you can, let me see if I can unfilter everything. So we'll show everything, and one of the neat things with Office 2013 apps and higher is I can take a look at, well, what apps are causing problems. So I'll sort largest to smallest, and I'll see I've got this document that has reported 14 errors. This has visual VB6 controls. May not work. And it will tell me how many users are affecting, and actually I can click on sessions, and it'll tell me when it actually affected them. When did this issue get reported? Now again, this doesn't tell me there are 13 people that cannot function right now. This just tells me, like any tool, it checks for things. And now this document is subject to the thing that it checked for. It doesn't unequivocally answer the question, can my users get their job done? This helps you provide data that you can then see, hey, is this a trend in my environment that I can track? And for more information, I can click here and go out to MSDN and get more info. Oh, I do have a connection, great. About that specific issue. So it helps tell me, okay, I've got this document also has unregistered ActiveX controls. I can see who it's affecting and get more information about it. But it'll help tell me more information about a specific problem. So there's lots of neat information that you can surface that now the IT group has more info to help determine, well, how is Office being used by my end users? And that's one of the biggest challenges is the IT group generally has a gap to figure out, well, what Office solutions are important to the business. And now you can have a little more insight. We'll come back to the dashboard and show some more neat stuff. And maybe my OK button will work. Anyway, so where are we now? We are back to, OK. Now we're going to talk about the different telemetry components and how it all works. Basically, there are telemetry agents. There is the telemetry foundation, which is a telemetry processor. And then there's a database. It's a very, in my words, 1990s architecture that we call client-server. Right? So there's an agent, sends data, believe it or not, to a file share. There's a Windows service that reads what's in the file share, sends it to the database, shows up in Excel. Right? Excel is a great BI front end, so we got some really great data visualizations, and it's very easy to use because it's Excel. People understand it. And it's all configured via group policy, or basically the registry. What this means is that Office 2013 clients include the telemetry agent inside it. However, it is not enabled. You deploy Office to 50,000 end users, 50,000 computers, you're not collecting any telemetry data until you opt in via group policy. And that's important. It's an opt-in procedure to make sure that you're not automatically collecting things when you're not prepared for. So what happens? Oh, this is fun. Is a document gets sent, the telemetry agent scans its database. There's actually a scheduled task that kicks off a scan, forwards it to your collection point, which is just a file share, and then it goes into the database, and then it shows up in the dashboard. I know, very pretty, right? So, I mean, it's a very simple, it's a very lightweight architecture. And for down-level Office clients, Office 2010 and earlier, Office 2003 we should probably get rid of. When Office 2013 was released, 2003 was in support. It no longer is. But if you want to get information from down-level Office clients, you can install the telemetry agent. It is a separate, I think it's a 1.5 meg Windows installer setup program. No configuration needed at all. You just install because it's all configured via group policy. You can deploy it to down-level clients, and now they can report their usage information. And it works very similarly. Yay! And it's, no big deal. Again, it's a very lightweight, very basic architecture, and it's very easy to implement. In fact, I've got a whole telemetry infrastructure running on, my laptop here and a virtual machine inside the laptop here. So, from a privacy perspective, because what we're doing is we're collecting information, metadata, about what documents are used the most. Some people may not want that. If you're from Germany, just the concept of saying, ooh, I'm getting more information from people's computers, uh-oh, that ain't going to work. So we have some privacy features built in. One of them is called file obfuscation. It's a great Scrabble word. And basically what that will do is it will obfuscate or hide the file names so that you can't get that information. So for instance, I've got a document called the Minecraft Acquisition Plan. Maybe I don't want my IT administrators to even see that title because that's a pretty descriptive of what's inside. Or maybe here are the Q4 layoff plans, right? That kind of stuff you may not want to see. So there's a group policy setting that helps obfuscate the file names, file paths, and file titles so that you don't see the actual file names. And you can apply this based on group policy to specific areas. So let's say everything from the law group doesn't get surfaced. Everything from the compliance group doesn't get, it basically we do the file obfuscation. So there is some level of privacy there. You can also filter based on what application or what type of solution you're looking for. So I don't want to collect any Word documents from the law group or HR spreadsheets from the HR group. You can base it, or I don't want to collect any apps for Office or add-ins from another group. You can specify it based on solution type or the application type. My favorite is the threshold because it's not only a privacy setting, it's also a great performance setting. So by default, there's a threshold of 0, which means if you raise that to a number, let's say 3, now any document that's used by less than 3 people will not be surfaced in the dashboard. So my resume, for instance, let's say I'm working on my resume. I don't want that to show in the dashboard, and maybe only myself and my next potential manager are going to see that. So I want to set it to a level of 3, maybe 4, so that personal type documents aren't surfaced. So if I set it to 5, any document that is not or is used by less than 5 people won't show up in the dashboard. So now it's a little bit more private, so I'm only seeing stuff that is actually used by a lot of people. Because again, my goal is to figure out what do I need to test and validate. I don't really care about the things that are used by 1 or 2 people. And this will help solve that. It also, by setting a threshold to a non-zero value, you are limiting the amount of data that gets sent to the dashboard. So it performs a lot quicker. So when you can make connections to the database, it'll be a lot faster if you set a higher threshold because there's less stuff. Great way to get rid of the noise. All right, so we're going to take a look at each of the different components. We're going to start with the agents and how it sends data to the collection point. Basically, telemetry is about 64K of data per client for Office 2013 or Pro Plus and up. And it checks basic inventory information. The MRU list, which is the primary, I think one of the primary uses of it, is getting that MRU list. What add-ins are loaded and registered at startup. And it also gets some runtime events and issue logging. Right? Oops, did any files crash? Do I have unregistered ActiveX controls? We collect all that information. It's great. And it's all documented on MSDN, right, not Techno, of what telemetry actually collects. For down-level Office clients, less information is captured. Basically, we only capture the usage. We don't capture any of that deep information about how Office is being used. So you can't tell from an Office 2010 client, do you have any documents that have VBA in them? But if you open that up in Office in Excel 2013, you can collect that because we're getting richer information from the later versions. So less data is sent. Also, you can have, I think, a single collection point supports up to 50,000 users. Right? Very lightweight architecture, so there's not a lot of infrastructure you need. But keep in mind, it's basically, it queues it up in a file share and then processes it, sent it to the database. So if you're sending about thousands, well, in this case, 25,000 users, you're going to have a lot of, 11 gig of data. It'll take about 8 hours to process. Another important thing is this is not a troubleshooting tool. It is basically used to get like a macro, a big picture view of your environment, not something that the help desk would use. In fact, I'm going to use a quote someone in the room, when I met him 2 years ago, said to me. He goes, "Wow, telemetry looks great. We're never going to use it." I said, "Thanks. What do you mean?" And the comment was, "Well, someone has a problem with Excel. They call the help desk. The help desk isn't going to look in the telemetry dashboard to see, do they have a problem? They're going to start to help the person. So it's not really a troubleshooting tool." And basically, I use that line all the time, by the way. And it's a great use case for what telemetry is good and isn't good for. It's not real-time information. It's not a troubleshooting pinpointing tool. It's help you identify trends and issues that you may want to dig in further. And then, all configured via the registry. So telemetry by itself, the telemetry agent by itself does nothing until you turn it on. And those settings, they are user-based settings. So if you want to filter it or identify tags based on your Active Directory organizational unit, it's where the people are, not where the computers are. And one of the more important ones are, where are you going to send your data? Right? You send it to a file share. No data comes to Microsoft. This is a total on-prem solution that uses your desktops, sends to your servers, and it's exposed in Excel. Even if you opt into the, the Customer Experience Improvement Program, we don't collect any of this metadata that's going on. In fact, it doesn't currently support SQL Azure if you want to offload it to Azure. So one of the settings is, okay, where are you going to send your data to? And then another important one is, okay, do you want to tag this data as it goes in, which is great for filtering. So if you want to have all your data come in so you can identify trends, and you want to work with the business areas, hey, you're migrating to Office 2013, Office 2016, or excuse me, 365 Pro Plus, obviously. Let's figure out, what do you want to test? Hey, look what I've done. I've typed a list of all the stuff that we see you use the most. Great starting point. So if you can filter that by business area, for instance, you can provide more better information. So you can be more helpful to business groups. What's this one? Oh, yeah, and then you can get rid of certain settings. You can get rid of certain applications. I can make sure I don't want, did I see Excel in there? Oh, yeah. Get rid of all the different applications or certain types of solutions I don't want to collect. By default, every application, every solution type is collected. And we'll get back to the demo so we can show some of this stuff in action. So the next part is the telemetry processor and database. This is the component, the telemetry processor, just the Windows service and a file share, that collects the data, forwards it onto the database. They can be the same computer. They can be different computers. It really is up to you. I mean, good news is it scales pretty well because it's so lightweight. So a one-server architecture may work for most environments. The system requirements, Windows 2008, Windows 7, nothing major there. SQL Server 2005. If you have SQL Server 2008 R2 Express or higher, that supports up to a 10 gig database, which will allow you to do it in pilot mode. It will support several thousand users for several months, which means an under-the-desk architecture, right here, will actually be great for pilot mode. So if you want to determine, hey, is telemetry something that I can get value out of? I don't want to have to provision a new virtual server or a database for this. You can use your own workstation. You can use a workstation class OS to collect data. SQL Express is certainly acceptable. And, for instance, 10,000 users for 1 year of data is about 14 gig. This is ballpark because it really depends on how much people are using Office. But basically what happens is the data will continue to add and grow and grow and grow. You can groom it out using a separate tool. We'll talk about that towards the end. But still, several thousand users for several months is fine with SQL Express, right? So there's no additional cost. And one telemetry processor will support up to 50,000 users. Now, again, from a performance perspective, if you have 50,000 users, maybe you want to split it out. It supports up to multiple. It supports up to 10 processors per database. And from an architecture perspective, it's better to have the processor, the server that collects the data, closer to the clients, because it basically gets a binary delta, and then sends it to the database. The good news is the telemetry infrastructure and the dashboard is not really customer-facing. It is only exposed, generally only used by the IT groups. So from a performance perspective, maybe you can deal with something that's not like super performant to make sure everything is super quick because it's not really going to be exposed to your end users. You can provide them the output, which is the Excel document, but it's not too stress heavy. There is a, whenever you set up the dashboard, or excuse me, the database, and we'll get to this, by default, only the person who installed it can view data in the dashboard. There's a database role called TD read only that if you assign a domain global group or a user to that, they have that permission, then they can read the data. So you can basically assign a global group to that database role, and now you can have people opt in. People in this group get access to read the data in the dashboard. So only people that have the specific access get there. And this TD admin tool can be used as a command line tool to set that permission instead of having to go into SQL Server Management Studio, which you can, but it's just an easier way. So, great. Now we're going to talk about the telemetry components. All right, so the first thing is the agents. So what I'm going to do is show you group policy. And what I've got configured so far is the important thing. Turn on data collection, right? Nothing's going to happen. No data will be collected until this setting is enabled. And then the other one is turn on data uploading. I'm collecting and I'm sending it somewhere. Those are important. That's how you opt in. Telemetry agent is dormant by default until you do something and set these parameters. And the other important one is, okay, where are you sending your stuff? So in my case, whoops, I am sending it to a UNC path. Currently, it only supports UNC. So you can send it to a folder and a server and a share. So basically, this says my clients are connecting to this share. That's where the clients don't know anything about the database, the agents, and they don't have to. It sends it to the share, and then the telemetry processor determines, hey, what database am I going to go to? The process is kicked off via a scheduled task. And there are two tasks. The primary one is this one that says Office Telemetry Agent Logon. It runs after login, and then every 8 hours after that. There's a fallback task just in case, but primarily it runs soon after login and every 8 hours. Now, when I say after login, we have an inherent delay and wait period built in so that if everyone shows up at 9 o'clock in the morning, who am I kidding, 10 o'clock in the morning, and they come in, it's not going to be a network storm. So it's an inherent 10-minute wait and then a 0 to 4 hour delay. So that's important to know, especially if you're testing, because you could say, I'm going to fire off this task manually just to verify if everything works, and you might not see anything because there's an inherent delay period. And that data gets reflected into the registry, and what I've got is these three settings, which the group policy just set. Now, these two up here, these are ones you can't set via group policy, but we document them in TechNet. These will change that random, that 10-minute delay and that up to 4 hour wait period. So for testing purposes, for POC purposes, I've set this to pretty much to 0, so that as soon as I run the task, it's going to generate data. So now I can validate, hey, is the data flowing? Is everything working fine? Again, documented on TechNet, purposely not in group policy. We don't recommend this as a production setting. And so what happens when I run the task? Well, where's my folder? What will happen is all the data will get written into these TBL files. These are binary files, and they just collect the current stuff. So if nothing has changed or very little has changed, it will only send the differences. You can't navigate or open well, you can open over Notepad, but you can't really see what's in this data. And this gets sent to the telemetry processor, which is kind of cool. So basically the agents, and again, so the Office clients are not constantly sending data to across your network. It's collected, Office 2013 apps collect it all the time, but it's only sent on basically an 8-hour interval, and only the deltas are sent. So it's not 64K every time. If I want to send the telemetry agent to down-level Office clients, I can certainly do that. And the way you do that is by opening up the dashboard. This is why you need one license of Office 2013 Professional Plus or 365 Pro Plus. If I go to the Let's Get Started tab, it tells me here's everything I need to do to set up my telemetry infrastructure. And I'm going to jump to step 3 right here, because what I can do is I can get the telemetry agent and I can extract it out. And I'm going to put this on my desktop. So now I've got a 1.7 meg MSI file that I can just install. There's a 64-bit and a 32-bit installer, and it's based on the bitness of the OS, not Office. So if I have 32-bit Office 2010 installed on a 64-bit Windows 7 computer, I want to install the 64-bit telemetry agent, because and it won't install. It'll just silently fail if it's the wrong bitness, because it's the OS that it's dependent upon. Very lightweight, not much to install. But also the other thing that it has is, okay, how do I set up the telemetry processor? And there's a button to, hey, install it here. Or again, I can extract it out. I'm going to get the 64-bit version because I've got a 64-bit OS. And now this is a 2 meg install. Again, all it installs is a Windows service, and it helps you run a wizard to help configure it. And again, it can be installed on a workstation class OS. And there is a, how long does this take? 5-second install. And then when you're done, again, you would do this typically on a server in production. There's a setting, hey, run the processor, the settings wizard right now. And this is a VM, not domain joined, so I'm going to do this on my production laptop. So now we get to see how the telemetry log for Office 2016 Preview works. Believe it or not, exactly the same. So I'm going to go, let's get started, install telemetry processor. Instead of extracting it out and then running it, I'll just install it right here. And now, because I have a domain-joined computer, now I can run the wizard. And there are only a few settings I need to worry about. Basically, what SQL Server am I connecting to? It will look at the local computer first, or you can type in the name of a remote computer, and then connect to it. Hey, is it there? Great. Now it'll tell me all the databases on that computer. So I'm going to give it a new one called Dashboard Ignite. Ignite. Right? Okay. And then hit Create. And what it does is it creates the database either on the local server or the server I specified. So in order to do this part, you need SA rights on your SQL Server. And that's it. Just creates the database, creates the schema, and then it just configures permissions. It adds all the appropriate roles. Next step is, okay, what's the shared folder that you're going to use to collect all the information? It's got to be the same thing you configured your agents for. So I think I had it already. There it is. Obviously, the computer is Ninja 10. Let's see if that's a valid UNC path already. Yes, it is. Okay. So I'm going to hit Next. And now what it does, it sets permissions on it. Right? Nothing for you to do. The permissions it sets is everyone has write access, but not read. Because the scheduled task is run under the local user's context, so it sends all the data to that share. But they can't read anyone else's data, or they can't even read their own. So then when they set permissions now, it sets the appropriate permissions. Obviously, the customer experience improvement program is very important. And that's it. And it just sets my permissions. So now, what am I going to do? Let's see if we can get the data to flow. So I'm going to open up the registry. And I think I'm configured to, what settings do I have? Software, policies, Microsoft, Office 16.0, because I got the public preview, OSM. All right, so I'm configured to go to, my settings are already set. Very, very exciting. I know, I'm excited too. So when I set, where's my, oh, there we are. Okay, when I run the task, what I'm going to do is open up the shared folder so you can see what the data looks like And when I say when you can see what the data looks like, you really won't be able to see it because it'll flash for a couple seconds, then go away. So I'm going to run this task. I've got those settings already set in my registry, so I'm not going to go to the properties. I'm actually going to run it. Writes it to my local app data folder, and then it basically sends it on to my telemetry processor shared folder. And it says, OK, computer name, username, timestamp. The processor takes it and says, great, I'm processing it. I'm processing it. And then it'll send it to the database. Well, maybe we do have time to see what's inside it. OK, and then it says, OK, here's the stuff. Right? I only sent, in this case, 51K of data got sent. This is a great troubleshooting step. So it's not connecting to my database. Did I actually go through the whole wizard, or did I hit cancel at any time? I went through? OK. So what normally would happen is this would disappear and go into the telemetry database. And what was the database name I created? Oh, there it goes. Yeah, you're right, Dashboard Ignite. All right, so now I'm going to go connect to database in my Dashboard Ignite. That's a great question. So the question was, does a processor have a log file so you can see, hey, is it really processing? So the good or bad news is if you see a lot of data in that shared folder, that means either stuff isn't going anywhere or the queue is really, 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 really long. So depending on whatever stuff is on your computer, that may take a short time or a long time. So fortunately, I've got, hopefully, one computer connected to this server. And this is the 2016 public preview. Again, it's really no different UI from 2013, although we have an extra item here. So this helps tell me, yes, I've got, my data is flowing. I have the agent configured correctly. It sent data to the processor. It eventually sent it to the database. And now my dashboard can consume it. Great for troubleshooting, just to make sure the data flow is working. Yes. Hi.
What happens if
the agent's offline? OK, so the question is, what happens if the agent, and I'll expand that, or the processor is offline? Basically, the good news is it's again, lightweight architecture. It's kicked off via a scheduled task. So if the agent's offline, the task won't run, won't send anything. When it comes back on and you log in, because the trigger is a login, then it will send anywhere from 0 to 2 to 4 hours after that event. So it's very possible, and I've seen this when I've implemented this, you can deploy the agent to a bunch of down-level Office client computers, and then nothing happens for like a day. I'm like, well, what's going on? If they don't log off and log on, because the trigger is a login, if they don't log off and log on, you won't get the data. So that doesn't mean the installation failed. It just means, oh, I got to wait for more data to flow in. Again, not a real-time troubleshooting tool. It's great for getting a big picture. If the telemetry processor is not online or the service is stopped, then basically the data in the local agent cache will try and send and fail. Nothing will happen. Once it comes back online, then the task runs again. It'll just send its stuff. Or if the data is stuck in the shared folder and it's not processing, once you say restart the service, it'll just queue up all the stuff and send it over. There is no end user impact, if that's what you're getting at, and I'm not sure, if any of the components are not working. The telemetry agent happens all in the background, and end users don't know about it. Another common question I've got is, hey, what's the performance hit? Because telemetry is always built in. So if I'm constantly collecting stuff, isn't that affecting performance? And I typically say, no, I've never seen that. We haven't gotten any support cases that says, since I've disabled telemetry, now Excel or Outlook is working faster. Because the telemetry agent's built into Excel or Outlook 2013 or all 2013 apps, but it sends the data on a schedule via a scheduled task. So it's an external process. Yes? The dashboard itself does, yes. And inside the dashboard contains the components to install a processor, yes. Potential risk if your end users have admin rights to install things. And that's a cat and mouse game. If users have admin rights, are you really managing them? Can it be excluded? It cannot. You can't exclude telemetry as part of so people don't get it. I guess you could use App Locker if you want to disable that. But yeah, disabling things for admins is always a challenge. I mean, if they're not admins, they can't do anything with it anyway. They'll be able to see it, but they won't be able to connect to the database. And if you're configured via group policy, then they're sending data. They may have installed it locally, but their data is being sent to the whatever central store that you've configured. Yes, with Office Professional Plus 2013, you have the ability to exclude it. With Office 365 Pro Plus, you don't. But we haven't seen a lot of cases where that is in demand. It's more of the ones I've heard about have been a nice to have. All right, so, okay, I keep talking about what a lightweight infrastructure it is. In fact, it's so lightweight, there's no grooming built in. I know. So we released a separate tool. And the challenge that can be is you can implement telemetry, 1,000, 10,000 users, and pat yourself on the back, look, I'm getting data. That data is going to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And it will never stop until you turn it off. You disable the agent via group policy, or you groom the data out. And so there's a TD admin tool that is external, free download, that will allow you to do a bunch of things. You can set permissions in the database using a command line tool without having to go into SQL Management Studio. You can move the database to another database, or you make a copy of it in case you want to go from a pre-pilot under-the-desk architecture to a more production server. You can actually set that file obfuscation via the command line tool only on certain types of files. So every Excel document, I want to set file obfuscation. I can do that via the command line tool. Or I can say, I want to delete all data before a certain date. So I don't care about any data collected in 2014. I can run the tool, and it'll delete and groom out all my all my old data. So it's a great way to administer the database or make some custom settings if you don't want to get into SQL Server Management Studio, which many IT admins aren't SQL admins, and so sometimes Management Studio can be a little bit daunting. Not saying you certainly can go in there. It's just this helps abstract the complexities there. All right. Now the fun part for me. Custom reports is another feature in the telemetry dashboard that helps you expose and mine more data. The data that's exposed in that documents and solutions worksheets shows you about 30% of all the data that's collected by the telemetry agent, but it's not easily exposed. Custom reports basically leverages pivot table reports to show you aggregated data that will give you more information about your environment. And so you can find even richer information. For instance, you can find out what documents contain ActiveX controls. More importantly, what documents contain ActiveX controls or macros, and how much are they being used. So in my opinion, if you're trying to figure out, I'm going to the next version of Office. I've got Office 2013. Going to Office 2016, I got to find all my macros because obviously that's a potential breakpoint. My opinion is just finding documents with macros is a worthless data point because I don't know if they're actually being used. With telemetry, you can find out what documents contain macros and how much they're being used. So you can get rid, if your goal is to test all of them and validate them before you go to the next version. Now you can get rid of the noise by excluding all the stuff that's used by macros that are used by one or two people. ActiveX controls is a neat one because let's say I'm going to a new version of the operating system and I'm starting over with my Windows imaging, my deployment process. Well, I've got to make sure any solutions that have external dependencies like an ActiveX control are still in my image. So I want to identify, hey, which ones are they? I can go do some validation testing. It will also help tell you what builds of Office, what versions of Office do I have, and I can find out issues or events or based on the version of what Office build I have. So, one primary use case of telemetry is getting ready to go to Office 2013 or 365 or Pro Plus. Another one is as I'm managing Office Pro Plus in my environment, as I'm introducing a new build. Maybe I want to validate the build before it goes into production. I want to test that build first and determine, hey, is it working for me? And so telemetry will help you do that. And you can figure out, hey, based on the build, are there more or less issues that are occurring? And also it helps you determine, hey, what issues are in my environment and what's the scope or impact of those issues. So let me show you a couple custom reports. I'll start to build some. And do I have a telemetry dashboard? Okay, I'll just connect to my database. And I will eventually open it. It's making a connection here. And now, okay, hold on, this is just for me. Huh, not working. So I'm going to hit the Create Custom Report button when I go to the Custom Report tab. And what this does here is it now makes another connection to the database, and it will import all the data from 5 different views in the database, all the views we expose just for reporting. And it sucks it into Excel, into Power Pivot specifically. And what it does, then it builds a sample custom report. And again, a custom report is just a pivot table. And a pivot table report is just showing aggregated data. So when I hit the Create Custom Report button, the first thing I see is here's all the issues that telemetry has identified in my environment and how many times they've occurred. And again, an issue is a potentially bad thing. Doesn't mean there's a problem. It doesn't mean users are out of the water and not working. It just means this is one of the 90-plus things that telemetry tracks and how much it's occurring. This will help you determine, hey, is there something else I need to research? So I will sort this by largest to smallest. And now I can get, hey, great, here's all the issues and what is occurring the most. And now I can better determine, is this something I want to take a look at more? Document failed to load. Application crashed. I'm having these in my environment. I can now take a look at, well, what's going on? If I want to figure out, okay, I'm introducing new Pro Plus builds in my environment, how can this help me? We've got a column in the events view. Oh, and the good news, all the views in the telemetry database are fully documented. We have the schema public. It's on TechNet. And every column in all the views that we expose are documented. Even there's 2 views that aren't exposed that you can add. Those are documented as well. So what I'm going to do is add the application version to my table. So now I can figure out what issues are in my environment by version. Whoop. Oh, the clicker's working now. So as soon as I click it, because it's a non-numeric value, it goes automatically to my rows well. And now what I've got with one click is here are the issues in my environment grouped by build. So that'll help me say, as I've introduced a new build in my environment, am I getting more or less issues? Is this build safe for me? And this will say, whoa, look, I'm introducing a new build. This is sample made-up data. Actually, this is actual fabricated data. This comes from our internal IT group, and we've changed the computer names and paths and version numbers to, for that obfuscation. So it's real data that's been faked. Actual fabricated data. Hold on. Give me 5 minutes. I'll get there. Okay. Awesome question. Awesome question. So, I mean, maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. So, where was I? All right. So what I've got is a table that shows me I did 2 clicks, what issues are in my environment, sorted most important, or how many based on volume, grouped by build. Doesn't tell me, though, how many computers have this build. So I see this one issue jump from 144 times to 350 times. Ooh, that looks bad. But what if my computers have jumped tenfold? Then it doesn't look so bad. But I don't know that. I've got this computer ID column. So we just create a numerical ID for every computer that reports to the database. And if I click on it, because it's a numerical value, it goes into the values well. And the default aggregation for numerical values is sum. But I don't want to sum up an ID column. I want to find out which well, crap on a cracker. So if I were to click sum, I could get to a different aggregate type, like distinct count, which is what I want to do. And this would show me all computers that have specific events grouped by build, so I can get a better visualization about, well, how is this impacting me? So it's kind of cool, but I think I did it in 4 clicks. I tried to do a bunch more. I don't know why my mouse isn't responding. But this is basically, so this will help show me, okay, I'm introducing a new build. Are there more or less problems? In this custom report table, this only helps you build a single custom report. You can build your own. Again, this is just pivot tables. All we're doing is pulling in data. So another thing you can do is you can extend it to that handsome strangers gentleman question over there. You can build multiple custom reports and make it a little more visual appealing. And so one thing I've done, just as a way to show how there's more things you can do, where do I have it? Is I created a separate spreadsheet and I leverage PowerView. And all PowerView does is it makes my data a little bit prettier and a little bit more consumable. So I created a custom report. And I'm just going to get rid of this so we can see it better. And so you'll see on the upper left, this is the first table that I created. What add-ins are there and the number of issues. I've created another, and these are all 1, 2, 3 different pivot tables on my screen, pivot table reports that I've formatted. One's a chart, and 2 are different tables. And so now these are the issues per build, and the number of build, and the number of computers. So I've actually got the count of computers, not just the sum. But the cool thing about PowerView is now I can interact with it. So if I click on a certain bar, it'll show me only the data that respects to that certain version. So now as I introduce a new version in my environment, I can say, well, let me show all the warning. No, there's not a lot there. How about informative? Only ones for Excel. So now I can help better determine, hey, I've built a custom report. This is a lot more interactive, a lot more consumable. So I can build this and provide it to my management and say, hey, we've introduced a new build. Check it out. Here's how it's responding in our environment. I can now make a better decision on, hey, is this build safe for my environment? This is a data point. This isn't the unequivocal answer of everything's fine, everything's great, my users can get their job done. This is objective data that you can combine with subjective data of, hey, how are the users doing, to determine if this is good. Other sample custom reports I can use. I built an Office usage worksheet that just says, okay, well, here's the people that are using Office the most. And I got this question working with a customer doing a POC. They said, we had deployed Office to a couple hundred computers. They said, okay, call this specific help desk or this, put feedback here. And they said, well, how do we know if it's working for people? Because if they don't call and report problems, that can mean one of a couple things. A, everything's fine. B, they're not actually calling us because they don't have any faith in the IT group. Or B, they're not using it. C, I guess. It could be one of a bunch of different issues. So what this will help do is track, hey, is actually Office 2013 apps and higher being used? And now, again, I can interact with the table. I can click on Excel, and it shows me here are my top Excel users, what documents are used the most. I can filter it. Again, these are the labels that I've built in as slicers. So now I can say, show me all the people in Africa in the engineering group that are using Excel. And now I can see, again, this will interact with me. A lot more consumable data. Yes? I'm sorry, say again? A map control? You can do whatever Excel supports. So yeah, you can build in a map control. I don't know, because the labels here are text, I just entered them myself. I don't think they will correspond. They might correspond if I insert like the Bing Maps apps for Office, and it will show me a big circle on Africa. It might. I haven't tried that. Actually, I like that. But yeah, those labels are text, the ones that I entered, just as for demonstration purposes. Speaking of demo, in this spreadsheet, or excuse me, in this PowerPoint presentation that you can download from this thing, you will get, I put in a how-to. If you want to see how do I use the Office telemetry data to build my own data visualizations. This is just a how-to of what I did for these 2 worksheets. You download the PowerPoint presentation, you will get this spreadsheet here, everything I'm showing you with the PowerView spreadsheet, in case you want to say, hey, how can I take it to the next level? Because PowerView makes it a little more consumable. So let's say I want to take that to a level further, right? Because I can build this PowerView worksheet, I can make it very easy to consume, send it to my management, and say, hey, here you go. If I go to, let's see, do I have it open? Power BI, if I just copied this worksheet, my PowerView worksheet, I copied it, uploaded it into Power BI, one thing I can do is take advantage of the most basic Power BI feature, data refresh. And so now I can import this into Power BI, configure data refresh, and this is now always up to date. I can refresh it once a day, and then if my management says, or my executives say, hey, we're introducing a new version of Office. When you're going to build 16, or when we announce Office 2016, and you want to pilot it, and you want to see, hey, how is this working in my environment? When you open this up, again, it's just an Excel spreadsheet in Power BI. It looks exactly the same. Oh, I'm going to go to issue analysis eventually. It'll show me, hey, what versions are in my environment. And the data is going to be always up to date. So I build my Power View solution, put it in Power BI, I never touch it again. So when I introduce Office 2016 in my environment, my version down here will say 16.0. something. And now I can determine, hey, are there any new or more or less issues as I've introduced this new build? Is it safe for my environment? But I don't have to keep recreating this over and over. So this is one of in my opinion, the powers of telemetry is to get more insight and more information out of basically your investment in Pro Plus. And again, you need one copy of Office to do this, because once you get that, you can extract the telemetry agent and send it to any number of computers you want. And oh yeah, so download the presentation that I've zipped up the file, embedded it in the PowerPoint if you want to get that Power View worksheet. It's just a how-to, and it's some sample data, actual fabricated data from Microsoft IT. That's it. So, just over an hour. So there is a hands-on lab this week that is available if you want to navigate to the telemetry dashboard and set it up. There is also, yesterday I did a session on updates. If you want to download that later, that talked about, hey, how the update model works and how you can use telemetry. Well, we don't talk about how telemetry can be worked with updates in that session, but it'll help tie the two together. So in my opinion, telemetry is great for two phases of your Office project. Going to Office 2013 or Office 2016 or 365 Pro Plus, and then introducing new builds. If you want to measure, hey, how is this build affecting my environment, telemetry will help give you the data. And you can use custom reports, and or if you want to use SQL Server reporting service, it's just a SQL database. We've published a schema. You can build whatever type of reports you want to mine the data and make it dance however you want. It's great. And then tomorrow I'm talking about from a project management level, some strategies to make your deployment successful. Telemetry is one part of it. And so it's going to be a more low-level, not as technical, but more conceptual. And we'll talk about what other customers have done that have been successful. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, please come to the mic so they get on the recording. And I will politely throw a T-shirt at you if you ask a question. I won't peg it at you hard unless I don't like the question. I was kidding, I swear.
One of the questions I was looking for, thank you much. I was looking to use this tool to inventory our usage of add-ins and specifically where they're located and see the practicality of going from Office 2010 32-bit to Office 2013 64-bit.
Okay.
Did I catch you correctly in that the extra data for add-ins and macro usage, I won't really see that until I get to 2013?
Correct. No. With add-ins, you will see that the data we collect for add-ins is what add-ins are installed and when they're loaded for any version.
So that they're used.
Correct. So, well, for documents, it's usage based on your MRU list. For add-ins, it's what's listed in the registry and what's installed and the load behavior. For 2013 and higher, then we'll see performance info. But if you want to figure out what add-ins are in my environment, like 32-bit Office 2010, that'll show you that. Okay. There isn't a way in the dashboard, because I asked this question, how can I figure out what computers specifically have 64-bit Office? You can run a SQL query inside the database to figure out, show me all my computers, but it's not easily exposed in the dashboard. But you can get to that data because it's all in the database.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, back there.
Yes, thanks. So is it possible to log the themes, like, how many of my users are using designs and themes in PowerPoint or something like that?
Excellent question. So, easy answer, no. We will track usage of documents. We don't track what the Office Telemetry tool does not track what features of Office you're using. So if you want to figure out, hey, how many people are really doing mail merges or something, Telemetry won't capture that. It just captures what documents am I using, what add-ins am I using, their performance, and here are the 90-plus things, are any of my documents subject to those 90-plus things?
Okay, second question. When it can track the version, can it also track the installation date?
Oh, I made it. I'm sorry.
The installation date of Office, that specific build. Like the
No,
problem
don't
I
think it
have
does.
is, let's
It
say I'm
tracks
piloting.
the build number.
Yeah.
It tracks the Office version. Oh, I'm not even showing it. The Office version, but it doesn't show when it was installed. It shows when the last time it reported in, but not when that piece of Office was installed. Telemetry has lightweight, in my opinion, inventory information, so it doesn't replace other inventory solutions. You know, Config Manager will report name, version, install date. Telemetry will not capture install date.
Thanks.
No problem.
So my question's similar to his. We're 2010, looking at 2013. So we don't get the macro data.
Correct.
So I'd like to hear the affirmative. I do get the files that are used, right?
Yes.
I do get the add-ins.
Correct.
And I do get like other events?
No.
No. Okay. Gotcha.
Usage.
But those two.
What documents are being used, what add-ins are installed.
Okay. Thanks.
Not for 2010 and lower, because the telemetry agent built into the later stuff. So it won't tell you what documents have macros for 2010 and lower. Hi.
So on your threshold, when you were saying you could set it for like 3 people, and so if less than 3 people were using it, it wouldn't collect? What's the time frame on when it's looking at how many people used that document?
Well, basically, so it's actually a good point. The threshold will limit the data that gets sent to the dashboard,
Right.
not the data that's collected from the clients.
Right.
So it looks at the document name, and that's the unique file name. So if it's 2 different documents, 2 different locations with the same name, telemetry will report it as the same document. So in the database, it will show you how many people use this, use a specific document based on the document name, and when you connect to the database, that's when it will determine, hey, I'm only going to pull in stuff that meets this, is at or above this threshold. So when I make the database, so I change the setting on the database, and after that, anytime I open the dashboard, that's when that setting will take effect, or in a sense immediately.
Thank you.
And maybe that's the shorter answer. Oh, I'm sorry, back there first.
How does the telemetry agent act in a terminal server environment where multiple people are accessing Office at the same time?
Very well, thank you. It's basically no different. It will. It's a user-based setting. So if you enable it for one person that uses that same remote desktop or terminal server, but not for another, it will only collect data from the person. If multiple people are logging into the same database, it's a different MRU list because it's all MRU is personal. And so it'll collect different data. It'll show up the same machine, but different people's data. Oh, my goodness. All right, sorry, yes?
The connection to SQL database, can that be like pre-configured set so that when we push this software to all the users, we have like 3,500 users? And let's say like we can go to individual users and say, hey, this is the SQL server where you like to basically run it. Is it possible that we can pre-configure that setting so that as soon as they open there and then you just run and then everything goes back to SQL? Even for us, it'll be easy to...
So the answer is no, because clients don't connect to the database. Clients connect to a file share, which then, so the telemetry agents don't know anything about the endpoint where the database is going. It connects to a file share. So in the file share has a Windows service that sends that to the database. So there's one level of abstraction. Clients go to server, server goes to database. So if you ever change the databases, the server that says your collection point, that has to be reconfigured. The clients don't.
Okay. Because the first screen when actually I ran this particular software, the first one it's actually asked is the SQL Server settings. It asks for SQL Server name and the database name.
Correct. That's the telemetry processor wizard that will ask, hey, what server and instance, and then what database am I going to?
Yeah, that one I'm asking.
Okay, that's the telemetry processor. So that sits on one or more servers. And so, yes, so you want to say, can I configure the settings?
Pre-configure those settings. Because, I mean, I'm seeing that on the client machine, not on the server. So I can show you.
So I'm not sure I'm clear because the telemetry processor server is the only thing that talks to the database. Okay. So you need one connection. And you can configure what SQL port. You may have to open it up, create a firewall rule. But clients never talk to database.
Okay.
That's the only clear part I have.
Okay. All right.
All right. Oh, we got plenty of time. What's your question?
If a client is off the network long periods of time, the data collected, is there a need to limit or deal with that data in some other manner?
No. Actually, that's a great question. So, and the reason why you don't have to is because the data that gets sent is the difference between the last time it's sent. So if the computer's offline, it's not using any data.
Off the network.
Off the network, okay, well, it'll just send the difference between the last time it was connected to the network and what has been. So typically, no, it's been very small. I mean, your most recently used list, I think, only goes up to 50. So if you use 51 documents, you're only capturing the latest 50 anyway.
Oh, I see.
And I think that's configurable via group policy, what your MRU list limit is, but you can't expand it beyond, I think, 50.
Okay.
So there is an upper limit. So that's actually a good point. You will only get the last 50 documents. If a person's been offline for weeks or months, and they finally come back online, but they've been using Office, you only get the last 50.
Great.
Hey.
Hi. The question on data obfuscation, is it possible to define that I want to hide data for like investment management, but not for the tech and data users, like, you know?
Yes, that would be done via group policy. Well, one way is group policy. So I would say target the people via group policy. Create a group policy object that targets the specific people that you want file obfuscation on for, check it on. So that that group policy only affects the people that you want that setting. And then everyone else, you have the ability to configure it differently. So with group policy, you can, for good or for bad, be as granular as you want, subject to how clean your Active Directory OU structure is, or site structure. So yeah, you have that level of control.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And I have no more T-shirts. Sorry.
Just a clarification on add-ins.
Yes.
Do you actually track only the inventory, or do you track the execution of the add-in?
Excellent question. The question was, what about add-ins? What are we tracking? We track the inventory, who has what installed. For Office 2013 apps and higher, we track the load behavior, or load performance.
Okay.
So when you load it, we'll track how long it took to install. We don't track performance of its use. Like someone said, hey, I get a call all the time because Outlook is slow, because my Outlook add-in always slows things down. We don't track normal performance usage of add-ins, only load behavior.
And for the lower than 2013, you don't do...
Correct. We do add-in load behavior, whether it loads at startup or not, or inventory. But we don't do performance, load performance.
So you'll know in 2007 Office if that actually got loaded, the user used it.
It will show you the... not if the user used it, if it got loaded. So if I click on an add-in and I see load time, it shows me...
So basically it's going to show you the load when it started, when the session started, not when the user actually used it.
Correct. Unless the user selected, I'm going to load this add-in.
Exactly.
Yeah, but if it all loads at startup, that's all we track.
Okay, thanks.
You bet. Yes?
In terms of the add-in event IDs, where
Yes.
does it pull that information from? So like for me with 2010 clients, is it just the Office alerts that it's grabbing that data from? In the
So
event
with
log?
Office 2010 and lower, there will be no events fired.
Yes.
So you won't capture that information.
But if I wanted to track them other ways, is there like a list of where you guys get that data?
How we get it?
Yeah.
Or, yes,
is it
we
just
have,
from the event log?
Yes and no. Publicly, we document, here's all the things telemetry captures. And we'll show you the, like macros, what object model items deprecated, changed, removed, ActiveX control not registered, add-in failed to load, all that stuff. We don't document how we, under the covers, check for it if you want to reverse engineer and build that into your own solution.
Okay.
So we don't have that. Okay. Do you have a question?
I do. Would there be any value to a batch process where you could, so again, I'm going back to the 50 limit. Is there a way of, if I know I'm going to Office 2016, is there a way of submitting a batch process and say, load these things up, look for issues, and then report them to the database, or? Is there no value to that?
I'm not sure I understand. Because basically, the agent just sends, here's everything on that computer, looking at the MRU list.
Right. So if I had a list of 1,000 files that people submitted and said I want to check them, but I want to check them against the new version because I don't have all the tools, like I'm running Office 2007, is there any value to a batch process to say, load this up and look at the results, or?
And so load that up in Office 2016?
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
So basically, and that's one way how we created sample data is someone created a tool that said, here's 20 files. We know some have issues. Let's just open them up one at a time.
Exactly, but some kind of batch process because, well, this thing, apparently it's limited to 50.
The last 50, correct.
The last 50. So there's no way around that if you want to set it up as this machine will just open up files and report.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can view it as a point-in-time solution. Here are the last 50 on this day. But as you keep it online for a couple months, it'll show you, it'll keep rolling. It won't age out the old ones. It'll submit the latest one. So as you open more stuff will get sent to the database.
Okay.
Last question, because we're over time.
Talking about installing agent and collecting all the data and stuff like that. You said 25,000 users, 8 hours, 11 gig.
I think it was 14 gig. Or was it 11 gig? 11, maybe. Okay.
All right. Is that every hour? Every 8 hours?
That's the total size. If you have 25,000 users that are sending data to one single processor, planned for at least, I think, 11 or 14 gig. Oh, no, 11 gig on the file share. That's the total size it could grow. 14 gig is the database, was if you have 10,000 users, I think.
And that's for 8 hours.
That could be the total time it could process if you have that much data on one server.
Okay, that's where the 8 hours. Okay, thanks.
All right, no problem. All right, thank you. I can still answer questions, but I'm just going to turn the mic off so we can stop the recording.